Nursing school interviews can feel terrifying. Trust me, I've been there. You're up against hundreds of applicants and you have no idea what type of questions they're going to throw at you. The pressure is real, but guess what? I'm here today to let you know my tips and tricks for getting into nursing school in the UK. I'm a second year student at King's College London, and these are all of my tips and tricks to help you do the best you can in your interviews. In this video, I'll break down how to prepare for the interviews, how best to structure your answers, and also the mistakes to avoid. Oh, and make sure you stick around to the end because I'll reveal one mistake that I almost made that could have cost me my offer. Let's get into it. Before we get into strategies, let's discuss what nursing schools are really looking for in their students. Because once you understand this, it'll make it 10 times easier for you to go into your interview prepared and be ready to answer any questions that they throw at you. Number 1 is empathy and compassion. Nursing is all about empathy and compassion. You're dealing with people at the worst point in their lives each day when you're on shift, and you need to be able to know how to navigate difficult situations. They want to see that you would be able to support someone in a tough situation in the same way that a nurse would in a healthcare setting. Number 2 is communication and listening. In a clinical environment, you'll be dealing not only with patients, but families, relatives, and other staff members. You're constantly working within a team and you need to be able to communicate effectively. If a patient's deteriorating, you need to know how to escalate properly and the proper procedures in communicating to relatives. So have a think about your communication skills. Do you think you're a good listener? Are you able to get your point across in a very clear manner, or is that something that you need to work on? It's really important to identify your strengths and weaknesses, particularly when it comes to communication. Number 3 is problem-solving abilities. Nursing is tough, and you're constantly thrown in the deep end with lots of different problems that need to be resolved quickly and effectively. You'll constantly be using evidence-based practice during your study years and once you qualify. Universities want to see that you're able to stay calm and collected and able to think on your feet. Number 4 is teamwork and collaboration. In the healthcare field, we're constantly working with one another to provide the best patient outcomes possible. So that would mean nurses working with other nursing staff, healthcare assistants, doctors, anyone that you would meet in the hospital, even cleaning staff, admin staff. You need to be able to communicate effectively. Nursing isn't a solo job, and it takes every single person in the hospital to make sure that everything is running smoothly. In many cases, they'll want to test how well you can collaborate with other people under pressure, and that might involve group activities, which I'll come to later in this video. So by keeping these 4 points I just listed in mind, you'll start to see how each interview question may be testing these fundamental nursing skills. Section 2, structuring the perfect answer. Now let's get tactical with this. How can you be ready for any question that they throw at you? Now, one thing I loved when I was preparing for my nursing school interviews was using the STAR structure. I'll break it down on the screen here for you. Situation, task, action, result, and reflection. The situation part would be explaining what was happening, so some context. Task refers to what you needed to do. Action refers to what you actually did. Result is what happened, and reflection, which is very important in nursing, is what do you take away from this? I'd like to give you guys an example to better explain how to use this structure in your interview questions. Okay, let's say the examiner asks you, tell us about a time that you used empathy. It's likely that if you're applying for nursing school that you have done some clinical experience before, that may be being a volunteer in the hospital or working as a healthcare assistant. But if you haven't, don't worry. You can still think about other areas in your life where empathy would apply, for example, in personal situations or managing families, friendships. All of those things apply. So just think about this strategically in your own individual context. In this scenario, I would say something along the lines of, I was working in a care home and I was working alongside an elderly patient who was really distressed about their treatment plan. The task there would be needing to reassure them while also making sure that they stick to their prescribed treatment plan by the medical team. Action, I sat with them, listened to them, and tried to comfort them while explaining things in simple terms within my scope of practice. The result was that the patient felt more at ease and comfortable to go ahead with their treatment. They were also more informed. Your reflection for this could be that this highlighted the importance of communication in nursing and how this is a skill that you can take forward into future practice. Another takeaway from this scenario would be that it's easy for patients to become overwhelmed by a lot of medical jargon thrown at them. So it's important for practitioners to slow down, step back, and really acknowledge the patient holistically before them and break it down in terms that they can understand. Another model I'd like to share with you guys is something that's commonly used in medical school admissions as well. This is called the spikes model, which you might be familiar with. This is a great one to be used when breaking difficult news. So you may be asked a question like, how would you break bad news to a patient or a family member? I'll break down each letter in this acronym. S is setting up the space. So that could be finding a private room to talk alone with the patient or their relative. P is perception. So understanding what they already know. I is invitation, so asking the person if they want more information before speaking. K is knowledge, and that's giving clear and concise information to the individual. E is empathy, and S is strategy, and that involves discussing the next steps. So if you are asked, you could say something along the lines of, I'd ensure some privacy and make sure that the individual is comfortable first. Maybe I would take them to a private room. Then I would ask what they already know so I don't overwhelm them immediately with lots of information. I would explain things very clearly, acknowledge their emotions, display empathy, and then slowly, at their own pace, guide them towards the next steps with reassurance. So section 3 of this video is going to be discussing common questions that might come up during your nursing school interviews. For these, I really recommend reflecting on your own experiences and your own desire to study nursing to answer these best. It's so easy to tell if someone is being genuine or not. Universities are looking for compassionate and motivated individuals to lead the future of nursing. Number 1 is a very simple one. Why do you want to study nursing? I find using the STAR model that we just discussed quite useful for this. It might be useful for you to really think about what first, inspired you to go into nursing or even consider the field of healthcare. Maybe that's some clinical work or volunteering that you've done in the past. Maybe it's even a personal situation with ill health that's happened. It's really important to be genuine here. Number 2 is tell us about a time you've demonstrated empathy, which we kind of brushed upon before. For that, you can also use the STAR model. Number 3 is a really tricky one, and it's what would you do if a patient refuses treatment? For this one, you can use the spikes model we just discussed about breaking bad news, but it can also be used for these difficult situations. This question aims to judge your critical thinking because this is a situation that you will often encounter in healthcare, so it's important to see how you would respond to it. Section 5 of this video will be discussing my personal experiences applying to nursing school in the UK and how my interview process went. So I received offers from every university that I interviewed for. I decided to study at King's, which I am very proud of, and it's a great university for nursing school if you're considering it. My first interview was at City University, and that was a slightly, I would say, unstructured interview at the time because it was after lockdown and there was a lot going on in terms of COVID restrictions. But we were invited into the campus. We were put into about groups of 5 and we sat in this lecture theatre and we had to work for a task together. The head of nursing was present on the day and he was kind of taking notes throughout the day and seeing our responses to questions and group work. I think the main thing I took away from that experience was that they were really testing our ability to work with one another and communicate. We had a bunch of different tasks to work through and questions. Some of them were quite controversial. For example, is the NHS falling apart? They were really testing our analytical skills, our critical thinking, our teamwork, our debating skills, because at the end of the day, people are going to have a difference in opinion, and it's so important to remain respectful, but be able to convey your point with confidence and clarity. Honestly, this interview was quite fun because it was nice to meet other people and see how they found the application process. I'm not sure if they still do it this way. Of course, this was a few years ago, so it could have changed. But all the advice I've given in this video so far is very general, so it can be applied to most interview situations for nursing school. After, I think it was a week or so, I received my offer from City. I was waiting to do my King's interview before, accepting or rejecting it. King's was always the place I really wanted to study nursing, and I had my heart set on it, so I was really nervous for this interview. I did my King's interview online, so it was through the webcam. You had to show your ID card before you could start the interview, and it was with a member of the faculty. You went through a few questions, for example, similar to the questions that we worked through in these videos. After that, you had a maths question to do. It was like a simple maths calculation. And then we also had a section of that interview where it would test your ability to recognize emotions. So I remember being shown an image of someone in a hospital corridor and they were crying. And I was asked, what emotions do you think this person is feeling? So I broke it down. I was like, perhaps they've just received bad news. They must be very distressed and upset. They look quite upset. And I know this because, showing these signs, they have their head down. There's tears in their eyes, really showing that you can identify facial expressions and body language, because in nursing and healthcare, identifying these cues is so important. Honestly, this interview, it took maybe an hour, 45 minutes, but I received my offer, I believe, a week or 2 weeks later, and I was so excited and I was so happy. And the last section of this video is the biggest mistake that could cost you your offer at nursing school. The biggest mistake? It's giving generic answers. So please don't sit there and rehearse every answer. The admissions team has heard, I love helping people. I want to help people a million times before. They want to see something authentic, something, personal, something from your own experience. Be specific, tell them a story. Tell them about the time, you were in a hospital. How did the nurse treat you? What did you see? Was it with a relative? Was it yourself? In nursing, reflections are very important. Something we discuss a lot at university, even now, is the Gibbs reflective cycle. So you can have a look into that. I really recommend looking into the 6 C's of nursing, which you probably did for your application and your personal statement. Also looking at the core principles of the NHS. And make sure you take a look at different reflective models, because in nursing, we are reflective practitioners. We need to, think about our practice and see how we can improve from experience. So those are my top strategies for smashing your nursing school interviews. If you found this helpful, please drop a comment below. I'll be reading all of them. If you have any questions, you can also comment those below. Please leave a like and subscribe. It helps this channel enormously. If you want more nursing school content, please subscribe and you'll see some more content coming up on my channel. Good luck with your interview. You've got this. See you later.